4 billion pounds or euros of money, how many codfish are going to have to pay that, especially because the codfish owners of the licenses for the cod catch in the North Atlantic have tried to make money by borrowing in euros against their licenses, and now they all have to pay foreign currency debt too. So Iceland doesn't have any means at all of earning foreign exchange except by selling off assets there may still be in the public domain, or by its population moving to America or Europe and sending remittances home to their families who remain.
Well, that's right. I was about to ask you how a country earns foreign exchange, and I guess it's mainly by increasing exports or selling off assets.
That's right. Or borrowing the money. And Iceland, essentially, the government of England is saying, hey, your private kleptocrats, your thieves, your criminals have money to our bankers. Our bankers have made your criminals huge amounts of loans. The government has to tax the people to pay this money that the criminals have taken. Now, this is neoliberalism writ large, and it's an abhorrent theory. An abhorrent principle, an illegal principle, and Iceland has been the first country to reject it and say we are not going to go into poverty so that our kleptocrats can pay your thieves.
Okay, well, getting back to the position now that the Icelandic government has taken over the weekend, how is the Althing, Iceland's parliament, changing the rules of the financial system?
They said, we're quite happy in negotiating an agreement to settle the iSave accounts, but we're going to insist that it be done under European law, the law that we signed. Well, this infuriates England. England says, what do you mean law? There's no room in neoliberal economics for law. Law is government interference. Forget the law. And Iceland says, no, we want the law. First of all, do we owe you any money for what Mr. Brown has paid his own depositors? Do we owe you money when the British have protected its own thieves from the bank and the money is long gone? Secondly, Iceland said as a sovereign country, we can't pay you debts larger than our ability to earn the foreign currency to pay. If you want us to pay a foreign currency debt, you have to tell us how are we supposed to earn the foreign currency to pay. Britain and Holland, in effect, have said, we're not going to tell you. We don't care how you pay. And Iceland says that's not an answer. If you want to get paid, you have to tell us how, and if we can't pay, we can't pay, and no money will be owed. That's the principle that the Parliament has drawn up.
Well, now, is it Britain and the Netherlands that are mainly owed this debt?
Yes. They let these branches in, and in true neoliberal fashion in England did not do any oversight at all officially to the banking authorities. It's hard to believe that its MI6 and its serious fraud department and its intelligence didn't know about the corruption going on. It didn't care because it was its corruption.
What is the capacity to pay principle, and is it being made the explicit legal basis for international debt service?
The capacity to pay is, it was introduced essentially by John Maynard Keynes in the 1920s with regard to German reparations. The Versailles Treaty had levied reparations on Germany far beyond Germany's ability to pay. So the result was much as had happened in Iceland. Hyperinflation. Germany just printed the domestic marks, threw them on the market to raise the dollars to pay England, that then turned around and used these dollars to pay for the inter-ally arms debts, for the arms that it had used to fight World War I before America joined the war. So Germany had no way of paying the reparations. And finally, the only way that it was able to pay was to borrow for its cities and its states, would borrow money in New York. They'd borrow the dollars. The cities and states would turn the dollars over to the Reichsbank, the central bank, for domestic currency. The Reichsbank would use the dollars to pay reparations to England, and England would use the dollars to send back to the United States for inter-ally debts. And Keynes said, this cannot go on. because all you're going to be doing is replacing the German reparations debt with the debts of cities, municipalities, and any companies that can borrow. And he designed basically the capacity to pay is here's how you calculate exports, not only the physical volume of exports, but if Germany exports more accordions or whatever, then the world price of accordions is going to go down. So there's a limit to how much Germany can earn to repay. Now, I wrote a textbook that I used since 1969 in my International Trade and Financial Theory course at the New School, and now at the University of Missouri in Kansas City. I wrote a book summarizing all of this theory in Trade, Development, and Foreign Debt, and I will be reprinting this in a print-on-demand through Amazon that should be available in about 3 weeks. So if you're interested in the theory, the book goes into the long theory, but essentially Keynes developed it, and as the world economy broke down in 1929, the Bank for International Settlements was set up in 1931 in Basel, Switzerland, largely to coordinate the payment of German reparations. And it found, sure enough, that when you looked at Germany's capacity to export and capacity to pay, the reparations debt had to be scaled down. So in 1931, a moratorium was declared, both on German reparations debts and on Europe's World War I debts to the United States for the arms, and the debts essentially were written off. That's what's going to happen with a lot of foreign debt today. The Icelandic debt will be written off, the post-Soviet states debt will be written off, Third World debt will be written off.
And when did you say Germany's debt was written off? In
1931. That was when there was a moratorium, the Hoover moratorium, on reparations and inter-allied debts. I've written about that in my book, Super-Imperialism, which traces the history of intergovernmental debt.
Are there similarities here between Germany after World War I and Iceland and other post-Soviet economies today? You've talked a bit about the capacity to pay, etc. How similar are these situations?
They're similar in a number of ways. The debts they owe far exceed their ability to run a trade surplus to generate the foreign exchange to pay off these debts. These debts are in foreign currency. The United States owes its debts in dollars. So we can just simply print more dollars here and pay them. We don't have to worry about the exchange rate. But if you're Iceland or a post-Soviet economy, you have your own local currency that you make your income in, or if you're a real estate owner, you get rent in. But people won't lend in your local currency. They lend in a hard currency, euros or sterling or Swiss francs. And so these countries all owe a foreign currency debt. And when you owe a foreign currency debt, you have to be able to obtain the foreign currency by exporting something. Well, since the post-Soviet economies got independent from Russia in 1991, the neoliberals came in and said, turn over all of your public property to the insiders so they can sell out to us at a profit to themselves. We want to buy all of your property on the cheap. That's neoliberalism, giving away the public domain. Neoliberalism essentially makes its money by cannibalizing the public domain and selling it off and financializing it. So the post-Soviet economies, like Iceland, turned over their public domain and their banks to private owners, and the private owners turned around and sold them to Western buyers, often borrowing money from the West to buy yet more property. And so the debts that are owed by the post-Soviet economies, as in Iceland, mainly are owed by the very rich, by the political insiders, by the old Communist Party officials. Neoliberalism supported the old communist bureaucracy. It said, we want you to leave the communist bureaucracy in power, and whoever is head of an agency, if someone's head of, say, the Gazprom or the gas agency, give him personally, and give the managers all of the stock in the gas company, and then let the gas company issue shares and sell them in New York, and we New Yorkers and Brits and other international investors will buy up the Russian gas rights. So the neoliberals used the old communist apparatchiks as vehicles to financialize and to gain control of the natural resources of Russia and the real estate of Russia and the post-Soviet economies. Until about a few years ago, only about 15% of Latvians, for instance, had mortgages. Other people owned their apartments free and clear because the banks really would only lend to the insiders and to the crooks. It's very hard to lend to somebody who isn't a crook because you don't know how strong they are, and you know if someone's really plugged into the criminal